How you doing? So let's talk about a very important topic, okay? As we look at the cutoffs for the solo banquet in 2025. So, is it realistic to be in the top 10% for the solo banquet in 2026 as a free-to-play player, okay? I was gonna make this video saying, is it realistic to be in the top 1% as a free-to-play player? But that's just a silly question because, of course, it's not, right? So, but I think top 10%, is it realistic? It's a better thing to talk about, okay? But before I start, I want to mention something when it comes to rich demand video. I said something about here that it would be the same if I knew what the mean was this year, or how many people participated this year. And actually, no. I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking about something else, but I totally had something confused or mixed up. But yes, of course, if I knew that the mean or was 80% or 85% higher this year compared to last year's 2024 banquet, then I would be like, yeah, my scores would be a lot higher this year. Okay. And because of this, right here, when you look at the our score compared to last year, because we scored 5.2 million, just over that, and we're almost reached 7.4 billion. Okay, so last year was 5.2 billion. So that's a score of over 40%, 41% higher compared to last year. So I would assume that our scores will be 41% higher this year. But no, it turned out to be 85% higher when it comes to the mean, because we had far less people, and I didn't expect that we were going to have more than 150,000 people fewer compared to last year, which is kind of hard to imagine, right? So yeah, so the only thing I would say those would be the same when it comes to rich demand's prediction for 2025 banquet prediction would be the 20,000. Okay, that would be my prediction, maybe 19,000, but most likely 20,000. Okay. And the irony part about this is, when I made a video talking about rich demand, how ridiculous his prediction was, I said 20,000 was like, what the heck is that? That's nonsense, man. And rich demand, I would give him credit when credit's due. He turned out to be right when it comes to his prediction for the top 25%. Okay, for the 2025 banquet, which is crazy to me. You know why I thought it was crazy to me? Is because look at my score, 9650. Okay, this is from 2024. Okay, and look at where I placed. Okay, I ranked this high, 160,867, and I placed in the top 25% with 9650. So if I score 9650 and rank in the top 25%, right, and I probably wasn't even the lowest person to qualify, why would I think 20,000 is a seems sense to me, common sense? No, it seems like it's nonsense, right? But it turned out he was actually right, or close to it anyway. So yeah, I gotta give him props for that. I don't think he meant it, but you know what? Just give him props for it. So he turned out to be right. But yeah, it's so crazy. So let's talk about something, you know, really important. Okay. No, there it is. Okay. Is it realistic to be in the top 10%? And it could be subjective, but there's a few variables, to say if it's realistic or not as a free to play player. Okay. So the cutoff scores for the banquet in 2025 was 39,000 for the top 10%. Okay. So if you consider not spending any units, saving it for the entire year, which is could be another video. Is it like worth saving your units for the entire year, not spending it on July 4th or Cyber Weekend or for anything else? I mean, you're considering the banquet will always be better in terms of rewards because of the realm event. Okay, it's like you're getting like 2 to 1, maybe 3 to 1 times better in terms of unit investment compared to like July 4th or Cyber Weekend. So, uh, perhaps another video talking about it. So let's say if you do save your units for the entire year, I do think it's realistic to be in the top 10%. as a free-to-play player. With a little bit of arena, you don't have to play every day, but you pretty much have to play like almost every day, I would say. Then yes, I do think it's realistic to be in the top 10%. Also, you should be at least Stormbreaker and higher, and you want to be purchasing superior Banquet crystals. Then I say yes. I do think it's realistic to be in the top 10%. Anything higher than that, let's go as far as the top 3%. As you can see, the cutoff is 61,000. You can take a look at it. This person right here, 61,900. So I don't know if he's the last person, but it looked like he barely made the cutoff for the top 3%. Okay. So is it realistic for a free-to-play player? You could define, it's very subjective to be in the top 3%. To be realistic, because you pretty much have no life. You pretty much have to be playing MCOC 3 hours a day, do all the arena, hit all the milestone. Then yes, you can hit the top 3% in the Banquet for 2026. Is it realistic? That's subjective, I guess. It's possible, but realistic, I'm leaning towards no. Okay. So the only question is, another question I guess is will the score be higher next year? And most likely that it will be higher next year. Okay. Unless the only way the score is not higher next year, okay, if the crystals are terrible. Okay. Not only that, we had more people playing next year. So why does more people mean lower percentage when it comes to the percentage wise? Well, because more players meaning new accounts. Okay, new accounts are not going to be going for these huge amount of points in the Banquet. Okay, it's just common sense, I think. All right. Even returning players most likely not gonna go for like these. They're just adding the people, meaning that there are more plays for the top percentage wise. Like there'll be more people in the top 1%. Okay, to me it's ridiculous that they even put the top 2600. Okay, there's really no point putting the top 2600. They shouldn't just give you the top 1%, the top 2600 reward. What do I mean by that? Because of this. Okay, I think we could get rid of this. What else? Yeah, okay, we can get rid of that. We can get rid of this. That's fine. We'll keep it because of this. Okay, I have it at 499,000 people participating in the Banquet in 2025. I think it could be less than that. I know DNA said it's about 480,000 people participating. So if you do the math, 1% of that is 4,800. Okay, 4,800. Okay, 4,800. So how could there be a top 4,800 and then a top 2,600? That doesn't make any sense at all, right? So it's really like saying, if it was like saying top 1%, then there's top 2%, and then there's top 3%. Like, what's the point of doing that? So maybe it was already pre-planned. Perhaps they didn't expect the Banquet participation this year was much lower, even though the scores was higher. But that's probably because they cooked the scores for the Banquet 2025. So is it going to be harder in the future? I do think so, because as you know, when it comes to MCOC, let's get rid of this. Okay. They lost more than 150,000 people in 20 compared to last year. Okay. So they're only going to lose more people in the years after. As MCOC comes to an end, probably by 2030 this game will be over. You won't have that many people. As you know, the score could only go higher, basically what I'm trying to say. Okay, because why? Because of the FOMOs, right? They're not gonna quit the game. They're gonna stay in the game. The reason why that the mean was so much higher, and when it comes to the percentage wise was so much higher, because we had far less people. The people that were not really invested in the game left the game, and the FOMO people, the people are really just stuck in the game, or that wants to play MCOC, they stayed in the game. That only drive the percentage wise. When it comes to the rank wise, like when you say the top 26, top 600 or lower, it's actually gonna be the same if not lower, because we're gonna have less people. But in terms of the percentage wise, it could only go higher because we're gonna have less and less people every year as MCOC comes to a close, as it comes near its end. It is dying, unfortunately. For I know it's sad for most people, but I do think maybe 2030 would be the last, uh, the end of 20 MCOC. Perhaps a different video, but yeah. So the less people it is, you got the FOMOs, the hardcore MCOC players will stick around. Essentially, the top 1% will be the top 2,600, because how many people would be left? It would be around 260,000 people. So they're probably just gonna get rid of the top 2,600. There's really no point of that. Okay. So yeah. So basically, for the top 1%, in the, maybe not next year, but the year after, would be 131,000, and the top 10% would be the top 5%. So in maybe 2 years from now, the top 10% would be the same score as the top 5%, which is 49,000. Of course, it's all variables. A lot of things could change for sure. So it's really hard to say exactly, but yes, the points could only go higher because we're going to have less people, and the hardcore players will stick around. The FOMOs, as you can see, there's a list here. I'm not going to mention any names here, but but yeah. So, what is this? Yes, so another question. It's only going to go higher from here because common sense, people know the scores from the year before, and then people are going to make cutoff predictions, and they're going to try to go higher than that for the rewards. Okay, so the scores will only be higher, and they're going to also, because there's just going to be less people. Essentially, there'll be only 260,000 people left playing MCOC. Okay, and the top 1% is basically the top 2,600, and the top 10% is basically the top 5% comparatively wise, and the hardcore people were going to be staying. That's why the cutoff could only score, the percentage wise could only go higher, and when it comes to the rank wise, it would only be the same, or it could only go lower. So that's the good part when it comes to the number wise, like top 600 and stuff. That's it. Thank you.